I think we want to make a fuss about the closure of branch libraries. Lots of towns have really glitzy libraries, central libraries, and they think the branch libraries don't matter. And they do matter. They matter in terms of somewhere to meet, somewhere to exchange ideas, somewhere to have a connection with the community. And sometimes in places like Doncaster, places like Crewe where I grew up, it's the only thing that's open in a community. All you've got in many of the communities is a chippy, a few shops and the library. And if the library shuts, there is nothing left. I've just read a story published in this book called Street Without Windows, and it describes a rundown in a city estate, and the whole street is called the Tin because the abandoned houses are covered up, much worse area than this, with tin shutters. Nothing is open. The local shops are shutting down, the supermarket's shutting down, and the only place that's got windows that glitter in the sunlight is the library. And the library is the oasis for the community. And that is what we're talking about in Doncaster. Doncaster, the words associated with Doncaster at the moment, you won't like them, will you? Dysfunctional council. Worst council in Britain. Council that's got its head up its own backside so far it can see its own throat. Doncaster has got a reputation as the biggest bunch of muppets in local government. And what do they do when they provide some of the poorest services in Britain? They decide to cut even more. Now I think we have to start a campaign here, because libraries have been run down for years. I don't know if you know, with 13 million fewer books are in libraries now than there were 6 years ago. Listen to that statistic again. 13 million fewer books. 80 libraries have shut in the last 2 years. Everywhere now that they shut a library, that they get away with it, it is a scratch that leads to gangrene. And we have to fight back against it. And we have to start with little demonstrations, little pickets like this. Let them know it's not on. The next thing we should do, I think, is move on to Bessica in the next few weeks, move on to Wheatley in the next few weeks. Try and get the local community involved. Always get the local press involved. Pickets every council meeting. I think we really have to make a fuss. Tim Coates, former chief executive of Waterstones, I talked to him last night. He reckons he can double the number of people visiting the libraries by a programme of refurbishment, which will be nil cost to the council. And he put out a challenge on Radio Sheffield to do that yesterday. I think we should snatch Tim's hand up and try and have a teach-in. So what I'm proposing to do, if people here think it's a good idea, is to send out an open letter to the council from the campaign for the book, asking them to meet any place, any time, anywhere, and for them to discuss the proposals put forward by Tim to improve their libraries. If they can't do it, there are forces that will. Now that is, I think, what we've got to talk about doing. Proactively saying to them, there is a better way to run public services. You are proving totally incapable. The chief executive of Kirklees is being sent in to try and sort them out. What sort of council is this, and why would this council not meet the activists? When Mayor Winter put through £632,000 of cuts, that's the first time I was invited to speak in this area. Do you know what he actually said? I don't know if people remember. He said there were no cuts. Now it's quite hard to have an argument with somebody when one side says there's over £500,000 of cuts and the other side says no cuts. It's called the Goebbels defence. Cuts? I see no cuts. Well, we know what happens when you can't see cuts. It's a bit like a Titanic, You can't see the iceberg and then, oh bugger, the ship is ruptured. And that's what happened 2 years after the last events. We've got to make sure for the people of Doncaster we don't allow this to continue. And that's why we're all here today. Now, being a writer, I'm going to finish with a poem. And this is a poem called Fight Back. Not as though I'm radical or anything, They want your legs so you can walk in the direction they want to go. They want your heart so it can beat to the rhythm of their drum. They want your tongue so it can tell the stories they want you to tell our children. But remember, they are your legs. It is your heart and your tongue. There are always other directions in which you can go. There are always other rhythms a drum can beat. There are always other songs a tongue can sing. So find your own directions, beat out your own rhythms,